I cheated on my second husband with our boss. I married him, and 10 years later, I'm in the middle of a divorce, pregnant with my ex-husband's baby, the rest of the story. So here we are when I have my breast disease called idiopathic granuloma mastitis, and it's just starting to put things in perspective. I'm starting to go to therapy and starting to just be like, what the hell have I done? At that point, it really drew me closer to God in my faith, because I felt like I was getting ready to die. And I think everyone, when they think they're getting ready to die, is like, all right, even if you don't believe there's a God, you're like, maybe if there is one, I should just check in, like, just in case. Like, what's up? I knew there was a God, and I think my faith really got me through that time because I was really, really sick. Was slated to have both of my breasts removed. I was slated to do a round of chemo, even though it wasn't cancer. It's just this rare disease, and it's how they treat it. And I just started getting really nervous. My daughter was getting really nervous, and I started to think, like, she doesn't even know her dad. Like, I'm going to die, and I'm not going to be able to introduce her to her dad. So I started talking about him, talking about how funny and how amazing he is, and how he reminded me so much of my dad. And my daughter had met my dad at that point, and she just absolutely loved him. I reconciled with my dad, like right around the time that I got sick, and she just absolutely loved my dad. And I'm like, Anthony reminds me so much of my dad. And so she kind of seemed open to it. And she's like, maybe I want to see him for my birthday. This is when she was getting ready to turn, I think, 11. And she asked me, like, does he ask to see me? And I lied to her. I said, yeah, he does, because I didn't want her to know that he hadn't asked. And she's like, well, I said, well, I haven't said anything to you because I had been asking you and you said you didn't want to see him. And she's like, well, I think I want to see him. She wanted to know two things. She wanted to know if he was married and if he had a daughter. She didn't care if he had a son, but she wanted to know if he was married and if he had a daughter. And so I was like, I don't know, but I'll try to find out. So I reached out to one of his siblings, his brother's baby mama. I reached out to her and tried to see what I could find out. And I don't remember if she responded or not, but somehow I found out that he wasn't married and that he had a child, but it was not a daughter. So I was like, okay. So I tell Penelope this, but in the meantime, I had spoken to someone like through counseling, and they were like, hey, you shouldn't have lied to her. You need to tell her the truth. So I had to go back to her and say, hey, mom lied. I told you that your dad had been asking to see you, but that's not true. And the reason I lied to you was because I wanted to protect you, and I didn't want you to feel like he didn't love you. But I don't know if he wants to see you, but I can't imagine he would not want to see you. And she said, well, does he have a daughter? And I said, no, he doesn't have a daughter, but he has a son. She said, is he married? And I said, it doesn't look like it. And she's like, okay, well, let me think about it. A few weeks later, she decides that she doesn't want to see him. She just wants to wait. But I knew that the idea was in her head, and she kind of knew, I guess, what she felt like she needed to know at that point. I can't remember I said how old she was going to be. I think she was getting ready to turn 11. It was like a week or so before her birthday. And I was like, hey, if you want to see him, like, we can see him as a family. We can all go to lunch. We can all go to a park. We can all do something so that you feel comfortable and you feel safe.